and welcome back to Spirit Mom. Today at Spirit School, we're going to talk about the dark night of the soul again. But this time, we're not going to talk about how it hits us unprovoked. Today, we're going to talk about how we can induce it, how we can choose to have dark nights of the souls. Why? Because when we clear up these pain points, we expand into further spiritual beings. So let's just refresh here. What is the dark night of the soul? Well, I described it as two different kinds. And the first kind we already talked about in the first video. I'll link it below. It was where you refuse to wake up and the universe and your own self and your soul is just dying within, and it's internal pain and turmoil because you won't wake up. You won't give up the bad habits that are keeping you blocked and silent and just dead inside. So that we'll leave in that video. That's just a refresher so that you know that type of the dark night of the soul when you're refusing to wake up is there's similar pain. So they are like the same thing, but they can have different instigators. So that's the first type. The second type is when we're already awake, but we hit these little mini ego deaths, or sometimes big ones, when we trip up as to realize that we suck in certain areas that we perhaps didn't know we sucked at before. Because there's points where we know we need to change something. We know we need to quit drinking, quit watching TV, quit seeing a certain person, quit talking to certain people, and on and on and on. The knowings that we need to change exist. However, when we're more awake, when we're further down the path, we quite possibly have gotten rid of everything that we think we should have gotten rid of. And here is where we discover the self deeper. Because the deeper we can get in there, the more we expand. The deeper we go in, the more we expand. So the deeper we go, the more pain we dig out, the more pain we're going to have, and that starts another dark night of the soul. But it doesn't have to last for long. Once you get really versed at doing this, a dark night of the soul can be 5 minutes of that letting it go. Sometimes 30 seconds of ouch, gone. But it depends on what kind of ego thing that you pulled out. Because sometimes with family members, we could take them for granted, and we kind of know we're taking them for granted. So when that's shone on us, we're like, all right, I know. But it wasn't a big thing like the obvious drinking things, but it is something. But they're my sister, I'm allowed treating them like that. That's my daughter, I can treat them how I please. That's my husband or wife, I can do as I please, right? So that's something that I feel like a lot of families get egoed about, and they put these things that's okay to treat family bad. That's what family's for. No, it's not. And you're stopping each other's, by excusing that behavior, you're stopping everybody's spiritual growth by saying, but I have to be real with someone, but then who are you really? So are you saying you're really a butthole? Because that's what you're saying. When you're rude to your wife, your husband, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, your children, even your best friends, or even if it doesn't matter who you're rude to, there's no excuse. If you need to be real with someone, then mirror that back. What did you just say? You're saying that's the real you. You're saying, look at that mirror, you're saying the real you is rude. So there, when we find those things, ow, if you're spiritually awakening and you know that you need to be nice to everybody, you know high vibrations make a high positive life, you know your words are magic, and what you say reflects out your world and the whole entire universe. Everything matters to a tiny microscopic degree. Nothing doesn't matter. Everything matters. So that means we can't make excuses. So because everything matters, this means we're not off the hook for anything we do. And there's no judge and jury besides ourselves, besides the vibrations of the universe, besides all the things that filter down, meaning nobody else is going to necessarily hold you accountable. We don't necessarily have a spiritual accountability buddy because most people are asleep, and they get almost they're going to have their own things to deal with when they die, because they didn't accomplish their spiritual mission if they died still asleep, and that's sad. And that's why Jesus says, forgive them because they know not what they do, because they were asleep. Had they been awake, that would not have happened. Awake people need to be held more accountable, but to themselves. I'm not saying we need a judge and jury. I'm saying this is what our dark nights of the souls are for. They are our own personal judge and juries. And we need to take them seriously, because pain is not the bad guy. Positive, negative positivity is a thing when you're positive to a bad degree. Because yes, we do want positive vibes. Yes, we do want high vibes, but we don't want false positive vibes. Because if we're putting a smile on, it's fine. No, it's okay. I have negative feelings, but it's okay. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's not fine, and that's okay. The pain isn't the problem. When we dwell on the pain, that is the problem. When we sink into a depression, poor me, because of our feelings, that is the problem. So the dark night of the soul is not the problem. I like to think of the dark night of the soul as this high processing energy system, like this engine for our negative energy. So it can sometimes rev up negative energy, especially with the first kind of dark night of the soul, the first kind where it's trying to wake you up. But then the second types, it's trying to show you something's wrong. And then when you found it, it's trying to make it clear to you how wrong that is. It's not okay to be rude to anybody, no matter what. It's not okay to have fits and break things because, oh, but that just wouldn't open. It just wouldn't open. It's not fair. It should open for me. Like everybody's like, do you know who I am? We all have that, do you know who I am voice in my head. But the reality is we are all the same. We are all members of the all. And that dark night of the soul place is not the bad thing. It's the filtration system trying to clear out our bad so that we can expand for more divine good. What's bad is when we don't let it go through the filtration system, when we continue with bad behavior and thereby creating negative karma, when we wonder why we lost our debit card, tripped and fall, had a fight, had some traffic, all the number of things that can come down because of karma, that is why. Instead, when we take these pings from the higher self and let that pain happen, let that ego, that mini ego death happen, where we take that pain and change it into space. And then with that space, the divine good can come back down. So that's kind of a step process. We acknowledge that we are doing something wrong. We let ourselves feel that embarrassment and shame I talk about in the first video of just when you're embarrassed, because this is why the ego will make you deny the behavior, because then you'll have to be embarrassed that you were doing this wrong thing for possibly your whole life. That's where the pain and the but let that dark night of the soul power churn it out with our deep healing and yoga and all the healing things we've been learning, especially with deep pain healing. The deep healing comes from deep breathing right into that space, and we clear it out. We clear it out, and then we move on to the next thing we find, and the next thing, and the next thing. And little by little, as we chip off these pains, we're getting bigger, we're getting better, we're moving on up, because we're not afraid of the dark night of the soul. We're not afraid of pain. We're not afraid of looking at our own mistakes in the eye and saying, I see you, and I'm going to change you, and we're going to improve. So that's everything for today, people. Good luck improving. Goodbye for now, Spirit Mom.